All right, today we're going to deconstruct two little acronyms that are absolutely central to the entire US tax system, the SSN and the ITN. You've probably heard of them, but we're going to dig into why we even need two different numbers. It's not just a quirk. It actually reveals the deep architecture of how the system is designed to track every dollar earned in the US. So let's jump right in. So let's get right to the core question here. Why on earth does the US tax system need two separate identification numbers? I mean, on the surface, it seems kind of redundant, right? But it's not some bureaucratic hiccup. The real answer gets at a fundamental tension in the system. How do you make sure everyone who earns money pays their taxes, while at the same time controlling who's actually authorized to work and who gets social benefits? It's a tricky balance, and these two numbers are the key to how the government pulls it off. Okay. Here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the one universal rule that basically created the need for this whole setup. Then, we'll dive into the two keys the system uses, the SSN and the ITIN, and figure out exactly what doors each one unlocks. And finally, we'll get into the very specific protocol for what happens when someone needs to switch from one key to the other. So, let's start with the foundation. The whole reason this two-number system even exists is to solve a single, very specific problem. A problem that stems from a universal mandate baked right into US tax law. And this really is the heart of the matter. See, the US Internal Revenue Code has this one incredibly simple but powerful rule. If you earn income in the United States, you have to file a tax return, period. It makes no distinction based on your immigration status. And that one universal requirement, well, it creates a massive logistical challenge. You need a way to identify every single taxpayer. And that is what brings us to the SSN and the ITN. Okay, so let's talk about the first key, the one pretty much everyone knows, the Social Security number, or SSN. But here's the thing. It's so much more than just a tax ID. You should really think of it as the master key to the entire US financial and social benefits system. So, the Social Security number comes from the Social Security Administration, the SSA. And that detail is absolutely crucial. See, originally, it was just created to track our earnings for retirement benefits. That was it. But over time, its role has exploded. Today, it's the primary key for, yes, filing taxes, but also for getting a job legally and accessing a whole suite of social benefits. It's like a multi-tool. Right, so if the SSN is this master key that unlocks both taxes and benefits, that brings up a pretty obvious question. What about all the people who are required to pay taxes but aren't eligible for a Social Security number? You know, they can't work legally or get benefits. Well, for them, the system needed a totally different, more specialized key. And that key is the ITIN. And that brings us to the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. This is the system's elegant solution. And check this out. Notice who issues it. It's the IRS, not the Social Security Administration. That's a huge giveaway to its purpose. It's also a 9-digit number, looks a lot like an SSN, but it always starts with the number 9. And that's basically a flag that tells you this number has one and only one job, federal tax processing. And here's the core logic of the whole system in a nutshell. The ITIN exists for one simple reason, because the SSN does more than just taxes. Think about it. Since the SSN is tangled up with work authorization and social benefits, the IRS needed a clean way to handle just tax compliance without all that other baggage. The ITIN is that purpose-built tool. It isolates the tax function completely. So, who exactly are we talking about here? Who needs this special tax-only key? Well, it's actually a pretty diverse group of people. You've got non-resident aliens who have income here in the US, or maybe certain spouses and dependents of US citizens, and they all have two things in common. One, they are legally required to file a US tax return, and two, they are not eligible for a Social Security number. Okay, so we've covered the why. We know the reason each of these numbers exist.
Now let's get down to brass tacks. What can you actually do with each of these keys? What doors do they open? And, maybe even more importantly, which doors do they keep firmly shut?
This really lays out the boundaries of the system perfectly. With an SSN, you get the whole shebang: work authorization, Social Security benefits, major tax credits like the Earned Income Tax Credit. An ITIN, on the other hand, explicitly does not give you access to any of that. It's like there's a firewall between the ITIN and those functions. But notice where they overlap. You can use both to file your taxes, and you can even use both to open an interest-bearing bank account. Now, there is one interesting nuance here with the child tax credit. Someone with an ITIN can claim it, but there's a catch. The child themselves must have an SSN. And don't think for a second that this is some minor, obscure corner of the tax system. That number you see, $5.8 billion, that's the net tax contribution from people using ITINs in just 1 year. It really goes to show that this tax-only key is a massive part of the system, facilitating a huge amount of tax compliance. Okay, but what happens when someone's situation changes? What if a person who has an ITIN suddenly becomes eligible for an SSN? Well, the system has a very clear and strict protocol for this exact transition. And I mean strict. It is not a suggestion, it's a hard and fast rule. This really shows you the rigid hierarchy built into the system. Rule number 1, the SSN is always primary. The system mandates that you are not even eligible for an ITIN if you're eligible for an SSN. In fact, it's so strict that to even apply for an ITIN, you have to prove you tried to get an SSN first and were denied. You literally have to attach the official denial letter to your ITIN application. There is zero wiggle room here. And what happens once someone finally gets that SSN? The protocol is super simple and immediate. The ITIN basically becomes obsolete. You have to stop using it right away. From that moment on, your new SSN supersedes it for absolutely everything: taxes, employment, you name it. The IRS even goes in and merges all your old tax records from your ITIN over to your new SSN account. And look, this isn't just our interpretation. This is straight from the IRS instructions, and they don't mince words. If you received your SSN after previously using an ITIN, stop using your ITIN. It's not a suggestion, it's a direct command. Once you get that master key, the SSN, that is the only key you're allowed to use. The old tax-only key is permanently retired. So let's just recap the core architecture here. The entire US tax ID system is built on one foundational principle: a universal mandate to pay taxes. To manage this, it uses two very different keys. You've got the master key, the SSN, which gives you full access to work and benefits. And then you have the specialized tax-only key, the ITIN, which is purely for compliance. And the system has a non-negotiable protocol for when you upgrade from one to the other. But all this leaves us with a really interesting question to think about. As our financial and work systems keep evolving, with the gig economy, remote work, how might the roles of these two keys have to change in the future? It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Thanks for digging into this with us.